5 fishing accessories on this bench cost far more than the simple jobs they actually perform. Curious cutters, keepers, bait tools, organizers, and hook covers face homemade replacements built from ordinary materials. Each cheaper version costs under $3 and has survived guide boats, freezing mornings, tournaments, and careless clients. The polished products look impressive, but appearance never cuts line, protects hooks, or organizes terminal tackle. Size. One premium gadget jammed while a trophy fish was still feeding, and that failure burned valuable minutes. Its homemade replacement has never failed me, because I can see, clean, and service every working part. I will show materials, assembly, practical advantages, and the one mistake that can ruin each build. Stay through the 5th replacement because it tames treble hooks while protecting fingers better than rigid guards. I am Arthur Boone, though every boat ramp and tackle shop around here has called me Artie. I have guided multiple species for 25 years and spent 15 years as a master tackle builder. Some crankbaits painted in this workshop quietly ride inside boxes belonging to national tournament champions. I study lure motion, knot strength, hook alignment, rattle tone, storage, and every irritating equipment failure. Quality rods and reels earn my money, but ordinary plastic wearing fancy packaging usually does not. Before major trips, this supposedly organized laboratory becomes controlled madness, which keeps my ego properly trimmed. Subscribe if tested fishing solutions interest you more than expensive promises printed across glossy packaging. Now look closely at the first product because its replacement proves branding cannot sharpen bad engineering. Accessory number 1 is the overpriced line cutter sitting beside a pair of stainless embroidery snips. A sealed premium cutter once swallowed salt, grit, and dried braid fibers when I needed speed most. Compact sewing snips cost about $2 and handle braid, fluorocarbon, and monofilament surprisingly cleanly. Choose short-pointed blades, spring action, stainless construction, and handles usable with cold or soaked fingers. Run a small split ring through one handle, then clip it onto a cheap retractable badge reel. Cover exposed attachment metal with heat shrink tubing, preventing scratches across reels, rods, and painted boat surfaces. A visible cutter beats an expensive cutter buried beneath 3 trays when changing line under pressure. But cheap scissors are not automatically good braid cutters, and the next test exposes the difference. I test every cutter on limp braid, heavy fluorocarbon, and ordinary nylon before trusting it aboard. Hold braid under light tension, close the blades once, and watch the strands separate without fuzzy ends. Loose household scissors often fold braided line between misaligned blades, leaving a mashed, useless little loop. After saltwater trips, rinse the snips, dry them fully, and oil the pivot with one tiny drop. Open blades reveal trapped fibers immediately, unlike enclosed mechanisms that hide corrosion until they suddenly seize. Replacing a $2 tool after several seasons hurts less than purchasing specialized replacement blades repeatedly. That crisp single snip sounds simple, but dependable simplicity matters when feeding fish refuse second chances, which raises another question. Why drill an expensive rod just to park one tiny hook? Accessory number 2 is the hook keeper, where permanent hardware often creates permanent regrets on beautiful rods. I once mounted a metal keeper poorly and watched its edge slowly scar my favorite blank. My reversible version uses one coated safety pin, 2 silicone O-rings, and a short protective sleeve. Slide both rings several inches ahead of the reel seat without forcing them across oversized components. Nest the safety pin beneath those rings, then cushion every blank contact point with heat shrink or tubing. The result adjusts easily, resists rust, leaves no glue, and avoids creating a fixed stress point. Never hang hooks from guide frames because repeated pressure can crack inserts and later destroy line. This keeper also prevents a nastier mistake, especially when the lure carries 3 impatient treble hooks. Face treble points away from your hands, reel handle, and every control you grab without looking. Slide the keeper slightly forward, creating lure tension without bending the rod tip into a warning curve. Never tighten O-rings until a thin graphite blank visibly compresses because convenience never justifies structural damage. Black silicone survives sunlight and temperature swings, while ordinary rubber bands eventually crack like stale noodles. I use these temporary keepers on client rods after damaged guides caused several mysterious line failures. Installation takes 30 seconds and reverses cleanly, unlike drilling, adhesive residue, scratched finishes, or specialized hardware. Tell me whether you use factory keepers, removable setups, or another safe method worth testing. Next comes a sophisticated-looking accessory that is really just a hollow tube carrying tiny rubber rings. Accessory number 3 is the soft plastic bait tool, particularly those expensive wacky-rig O-ring applicators. Clients used to tear salted stick worms constantly by driving hooks directly through their soft centers. A cleaned mechanical pencil barrel or narrow pen tube performs the same installation job for practically nothing. Choose a tube slightly narrower than the bait, smooth every edge, then load several plumbing O-rings. Insert the worm halfway, roll one ring onto its center, and slide the hook underneath. Cross 2 rings when possible, holding the hook perpendicular with its point exposed and centered. One discarded tube and cheap rings can prepare dozens of worms for less than $3. Saving plastics sounds useful, but the biggest advantage appears only after fish begin striking imperfectly. Consistent hook orientation produces cleaner hookups than randomly piercing plastic, especially beside docks and sparse grass. Direct hooking lets the hook rotate sideways, while crossed rings keep the point centered and ready. During one summer guide trip, short-striking largemouth repeatedly stole worms rigged straight through their middles. The homemade system preserved baits through several fish and kept us casting during a brief feeding window. Oversized rings can crush heavily salted plastic, splitting expensive baits before they ever touch water. Carry 2 tube sizes for thin finesse worms and thick 5-inch sticks instead of forcing either. Repeatable rigging matters more than copying the appearance of some polished accessory hanging near checkout. The 4th replacement transformed my tackle laboratory, although its main material arrived protecting something else. These first 3 builds share one rule: useful tools stay visible, serviceable, replaceable, and mechanically simple. My guide boat values speed, drainage, safety, and reliability more than polished claims or proprietary parts. The snips, keeper, and bait tube require no machinery, permanent modifications, or advanced workshop talent. I appreciate clever engineering, but I refuse complexity that exists mainly to justify prettier packaging. Expensive boxes still let hooks, swivels, and split rings crawl beneath warped dividers during rough rides. I have opened organized trays after hard runs and found terminal tackle mixed like metallic confetti. The replacement costs almost nothing, keeps components quieter, and begins with material most people immediately discard. Organization creates the most surprising savings, and around pressured fish, silence may become its biggest advantage. That discarded material becomes accessory number 4, a quiet foam organizer built inside a shallow food container. Before building it, ask yourself whether tackle storage can disturb fish that never even see your box. In ordinary divided trays, warped partitions let hooks, swivels, and sinkers tunnel underneath during rough runs. Cut closed-cell polyethylene packing foam snugly, then score straight rows without slicing completely through its thickness. Press hooks, jig heads, snaps, swivels, and leaders into separate rows, adding modest labels for quick identification. Glue bright craft foam inside the lid, creating gentle pressure that holds everything seated when inverted. Mine uses foam from electronics packaging, proving my workshop occasionally benefits from refusing to throw anything away. Let every adhesive cure fully, and reject materials carrying strong chemical odors before tackle goes inside. Now shake the commercial box. Metal chatters like loose bolts bouncing inside a washing machine. Shake the foam version beside the microphone, and you hear only a dull, almost embarrassed whisper. Here is the surprise. Quieter organization can protect an approach before your lure ever touches water. I once watched feeding smallmouth scatter when a metal terminal box crashed onto my aluminum deck. No container catches fish, obviously, but needless clatter can wreck clear flats, docks, and bedding water presentations. The difference grows on calm mornings when every dropped sinker seems to announce your boat across the lake. Foam also prevents painted jig heads from colliding, preserving finishes I spent entirely too long perfecting. However, choose the wrong foam, and clever organization quietly becomes a damp little factory for rust. Use closed-cell polyethylene, never-absorbent upholstery foam that holds water against metal like a soaked sponge. If this box rides wet boats or banks, drill several tiny drainage holes through the container bottom. After every trip, open everything completely, letting hooks and foam dry before closing them for storage. Removable paper tags or restrained marker codes identify sizes without turning the lid into algebra homework. Bright foam gives dark hooks useful contrast when rigging before sunrise, after sunset, or beneath weak lights. Keep scented plastics away from unknown foam because their oils and plasticizers sometimes react surprisingly badly. I learned that lesson after 2 worms fused into something resembling expensive garlic-scented chewing gum. With terminal tackle quiet and visible, we can protect fingers and rod finishes for pennies next. Accessory number 5 is the treble hook guard, replacing rigid covers with short pieces of flexible vinyl tubing. Years ago, I reached into a crowded tray, hooked one finger, and found another treble still buried. Clear aquarium hose works beautifully, while bright tubing remains easier to spot inside shadowy tackle compartments. Choose an inside diameter that fits 2 points snugly without squeezing them together or bending light wire. Cut short sections, split each lengthwise along one side, then press them across paired treble points. During transportation, cover every point. Expose one only when the lure stays isolated from hands and equipment. The first few I cut looked like tiny, transparent hot dog buns, but they worked flawlessly anyway. Many commercial guards create their own irritation precisely when you remove them, which brings the useful reveal. Rigid covers often launch across the boat, vanish under seats, or make one expensive dive overboard. Split vinyl stays wrapped around paired points, so removal requires no springs, hinges, or runaway pieces. One tubing size may serve several hook sizes, reducing packages and keeping the repair kit simpler. Never use tubing that forces points inward because sideways pressure can dull or deform delicate trebles. Before fishing, test every point against your thumbnail, regardless of whichever guard protected it overnight. I use these pieces on crankbaits, jerkbaits, topwaters, and spare trebles carried for emergency repairs. Dry them after rain, and replace any section that becomes cloudy, stiff, split, or cracked. Fingers stay safer, lures tangle less, and nobody searches beneath my console for another plastic projectile. Lined together, all 5 homemade builds reveal where simple construction beats decorative complexity and proprietary replacement parts. The snips stay cleanable, the keeper reversible, the applicator repeatable, the organizer quiet, and guards adaptable. Shared materials bring my approximate total near $10, compared with $40 to $70 for premium versions. That comparison includes price, repairability, access, weather tolerance, maintenance, and protection for neighboring equipment. Premium is not automatically foolish. Constant saltwater use can justify specialized cutters and truly sealed organizers. Pay for meaningful engineering and durability, not a logo performing work household materials already handle. I would rather buy dependable line, sharp hooks, fuel, licenses, or another dawn on the water. Which overpriced accessory have you replaced successfully, or where did your worst tackle spill happen?
Still, inexpensive and deliberately built differs completely from cheap, rushed, and trusted without testing. Every replacement earns boat space only after home testing proves it solves the problem safely and consistently. Smooth-cut edges, shield rod blanks from metal, and never squeeze thin graphite beneath tight rings. Dry cutters, foam, tubing, and hooks after wet trips. Then inspect every treble point carefully. Keep those points facing away from hands, reel controls, and anything grabbed quickly during a strike. I own shiny gadgets that became drawer decorations, silently charging rent for space they never earned. Building replacements taught me why tools function, making genuine premium engineering much easier to recognize. A streamlined bench should hold fewer products, but every item must deserve its weight, maintenance, and risk. Look across my bench now, foam rows aligned, trebles guarded, snips exposed, and bait tubes loaded. The scene feels quieter than glossy packaging designed to make ordinary functions seem mysterious and complicated. Fishing gear forms a working system, and each object must justify space before joining tomorrow's trip. Confidence comes less from owning piles of equipment than understanding exactly why dependable equipment works. On the far side, two identical crankbaits wait beside several pieces of surprisingly influential hardware. In the next video, small modifications will alter vibration, buoyancy, and strike response without repainting anything. One tiny adjustment makes matching crankbaits behave differently underwater, something tournament anglers rarely discuss near crowded ramps. Today, however, every promised replacement has been built, tested, explained, and placed ready for honest work. If one build saves money or protects tackle, like this video and subscribe for more field-tested solutions. I will keep testing tackle builds, lure adjustments, and honest gear comparisons without selling miracle shortcuts. Good anglers are not measured by expensive tools, but by dependable decisions made when conditions change. Every dollar spared from useless complexity can become another cast, another trip, or another lesson. The 5 homemade tools now sit beside their costly counterparts, while branding fades behind useful function. Tomorrow's tackle waits organized and ready, with fewer hazards and nothing aboard merely for decoration. I close the sewing snips once, and cleanly separated braid settles across the wooden bench. That quiet cut says everything. Understand your equipment, build thoughtfully, and spend your fishing life fishing.